Okay guys, instead of mooching free Wi-Fi as I might be expected to do at this point, I've found right near work there's a free Wi-Fi spot. I'll talk about events of days gone past involving WelderCSR and donating to Elvis. I have got an email from him. He does want me to relay a message. I'll probably put that message in another video. It's a lot of stuff in caps lock, I'll put it like that. The whole thing's in caps lock. So many times I've seen him try to get e-beggars to answer questions for money on the pretense that in the process there will be some big dirty lies revealed, and long story short, they will get the money but they will destroy their reputation in the process. I feared that at some point in trying to make a point somewhere along the way he was going to basically give money to an e-beggar and feel as though he'd made a point, but in the process handed over cash to an e-beggar and extended their lazy life of doing nothing and getting money, and reinforced that behaviour. I know a lot of you guys don't want to give Elvis an inch. You know, it's as simple as that. Like, you want him to run out of money and see him in a cardboard box, or just see him forced to get a job and forced to face reality and just have to, you know, man up and become a ham and egger. It's as simple as that, you know, and pay his own way. And even if he's not a ham and egger, you know, or doesn't have a regular 9-to-5 job or whatever, do something to earn money to provide for himself, instead of expecting everybody else to hand money to him for his great content, whatever the fuck that is, because I haven't seen any great content. Anyways, the fact of the matter is that WelderCSR gave $100. It wasn't $5 grand. It wasn't $1,000. It wasn't anything like that. It was $100 to Elvis to go to Chicago and see his mum, and he done exactly that. I can't help but think there's something going on all the same with this whole business of staying in Arkansas to the day that his father's house was taken out of the property by that truck. Why did he have to stay there the very last day? And to sort of, you know, put people off track and make them think that he was already travelling there, you know, make this fake video showing this RV park in Cairo, Illinois that was actually Benton, Arkansas. You know, he obviously felt the pressure was on, so that's why he made that fake video. But I really question, like, why did he need to stay to the very day that the house disappeared? Was there something he had to sign? Was there money that he had to pick up? Was there a check that he had to put in the bank? What was really going on? You know, because if he wasn't getting a cracker out of it, and also his sisters had all the control over it, it's not like you sell a house to these people and they're just going to fucking leave it there. They are going to take it. Polus bolus, they're going to take it anyway. You know, and they disconnected everything and all that, and I mean, let's face it, he didn't even understand what the connections were, the wires that were coming out of the ground or anything like that. I really suspect there is something that's going on involving a bit of money or whatever with that, because I can't see, if his mum's in trouble, why he would continue to stay in Arkansas to that last final minute of the house rolling up the road towed by that Kenworth. Anyway, I know the mentality is that if you give e-beggars an inch, you give them a mile. Aside from these little mocking 14-cent donations and stuff like that, you know, it's one of the primary rules. It's sacrilege to give money to these people, because as much as $100 might be much, you're still reinforcing this bullshit behaviour, expecting people to give you money. It's quite interesting talking about e-beggars. There's a guy who I used to watch. He does a lot of Disney stuff now, and I couldn't give a rat's ass about Disney, but he used to do a lot of abandoned buildings, and I fucking love that shit. And his content was so good that if he had to do an abandoned... He used to do a lot of theme parks, like water parks and fucking sports things and stuff like that, and you know, even places where they used to race cars and shit like that, and then also large businesses like 3-story tall factories or whatever. He even sneaking into old naval intelligence buildings 10 stories tall and stuff like this. But so many times when he'd go into these old industries or these old theme parks, he would actually talk to somebody locally and get photos from the 1970s and the 1980s when these parks were still active. Or he would actually take a former employee of this now closed down corporation and go through with them, and they'd explain what this part is, what that part is. He went through a foundry for making cast iron stuff, and they'd explain different stuff, and then he'd, you know, get all the photos of when it was in its heyday back in the 70s when everybody was working there and fucking tons of cars in the car park, all that sort of shit, and never asked for a fucking dime. But he did have another channel that was a daily one where he'd open people's mail and read this mail that had come from people. And the other thing was, on that he'd sometimes say at the end of it, you know, buy my stickers or buy these hats or buy these shirts. As for working for YouTube, he was actually making more money off of selling hats and t-shirts than he ever made out of monetization. It was only his short little less than bloody 7-minute videos, daily videos, on his second channel where he actually even advertised any of his wares. He would never put any e-begging, advertising of his wares or anything on his main channel, except at the end, and subscribe to my daily channel. That was all he'd say. No t-shirts for sale, links in the description, no GoFundMe, none of that shit. And he went really well, and his content was fucking brilliant. I don't know how, he must have put ads in the paper looking for former employees of these buildings before he'd go through there. And back in the day, photos of when it was all active, showed a giant swimming pool that was empty, and then he showed it on one of these major sports days with all the competitors there and tons of people in the stand. Unbelievable. Never asked for a fucking dollar. Anyways, clouds have gone over again. In all this, Welder can't really see why all these friends have turned on him. I quite frankly can, because he mightn't have given Elvis a mile, but he did give him an inch. And you know, let's face it, I got people who hate his guts and would punch him up if they saw him. I know people who want him dead. I even, as Rosie has talked to somebody who is willing to probably kill him and do the jail time for it. And I'm completely serious. And this is a level of hatred out there. You know, and I've sort of said to Welder, you might as well have given $1,000 to Nomadic Fanatic, because as much as you helped a guy out to see his mother, and you know, I know if, you know, the last time I saw my nan, she did not recognise me at all. I mean, she wasn't even conscious I was in the fucking room. You know, that was the last time I cried, and that was, well, didn't full on bawl my eyes out, but there were a few tears coming down because I'd seen her too late and she didn't know who I was. And was, you know, and he probably sees that Elvis wants to see his mother, and trust me, if it's, you've got a last chance to see someone who's going to die and you don't see him, you fucking regret it for years. And he may have felt that and decided that Elvis needed that $100. Elvis is a funny one where he is not your standard e-beggar. First of all, most e-beggars whinge, whine, rant, fucking moan, groan, and create big conspiracy theories about everyone attacking them. And that they're completely in the clear. They won't make serious, long, slanderous rants trying to stand up to these people who they believe are attacking them, whereas Elvis will. The other thing is, people will ask him to do stuff, and often enough he will actually do these things. Somebody apparently paid him $100 to have a shower in that Walmart car park that time, and he went ahead and done it. It's quite surprising how many times this guy will be given money to do something and will actually follow through and do it. And most e-beggars are fucking hopeless. You give them money to do something, they never do it, they go on a mad frenzy deleting comments and then make some video about everybody being out to get them. And spend all the fucking money on fuck knows what. McDonald's, drones, other ridiculous toys, stickers, stupid jackets for cats, all this other fucking horse shit, you know. And he's one where, you know, I know he took $4,000 for van improvements, including a solar system on the van, and never done it, but 90-ish% of the time or more, he will actually do what he's given the money for, which is quite unique because so many e-beggars lie so horrendously on a regular basis all the time that half of their existence is a fucking lie. They've all got big egos. That's one thing in common. They've all got huge egos. And so many of them, you know, won't spend the money on what it's given to them for, and or they will just to try and prove a point once or twice and then keep blowing it on shit. But Elvis sort of, his donations are so few and far between that if you give him one with a specific thing to do, 90% of the time he'll do it. But anyway, I will read out the message that Welder's given in another video. He feels as though he's been betrayed and he can't believe his friends have turned on him. I can see entirely why people are turned on him. You know, he's a decent guy and he does want to help people, and in this time he was helping an e-beggar, you know, and it wasn't much really, $100, you know, and it did help the guy see his mother. And as he said to me, Elvis did follow through and see his mother. But all the same, I understand that he broke that one rule of giving money to an e-beggar, therefore helping continue this bullshit lifestyle that these e-beggars live, this entitlement mentality. You know, I will say a few things about my uncle. You know, some of you know he was a fucking classic. He used to be the same. He was a fucking e-beggar without the internet. You know, I don't know how many times the power was disconnected and he would get relatives to bail him out. Meanwhile, what we didn't know in the background was He was borrowing money against his property and blowing it on all whatever he wanted to blow it on, take away food and all this shit. And he'd get all these loan extensions, and I've seen printouts of this guy who he's getting the money from, this guy's diary, all the fucking printouts. Got another $20,000. Use not specified. Got another $30,000. Purpose not specified. Over and over in this fucking diary. Page after page was photocopied in this court case. You know, and we would never hear about this extra money. We might see him buy something. But then the power would be disconnected and he'd be back running to these relatives. Oh, you got to help me out, you got to help me out. These relatives would have handed over more than $50,000 paying for the power to be reconnected and paying the bill, and the same for the phone, you know. And yet there was all this money he was borrowing in the background that we never really quite knew about until it all came to a head one day and he basically went bankrupt for $500,000 from money borrowed between 1984 and 1998. Not today's money, back when people were making $275, $330 a week as their weekly wage, you know, and he managed to borrow $500,000. Literally $500,000. I seen the fucking letters when he was being bankrupt. I was actually the first one to see the fucking letters because I was with him in the car when he got the letters out of the letterbox and was reading them. I was the first relative to see these fucking announcement of bankruptcy letters, you know, and he was terrible as well. My dad used to say that so many times he was given money and it'd get spent on something else or would get frittered away, or what had happened is you give him money to fix his car or whatever, and then somebody else would say, okay, I'll take you to the mechanic and get his car fixed, and then that money you'd still keep and you'd fucking spend it on other shit. My dad used to say that, and there was another people we knew that were at their church at the time who were asking for money, and somebody else in the church was going to give him money, and my dad said, do not fucking give him money. He said, you can buy him food. He said, you can go and, you know, pay the mechanic to fix their car. He said, you can give him stuff, physical stuff, but don't give them cash because you never know what it's actually going to get used for. You know, whereas if you buy them groceries, you know that they've got food. You know, not here's $100, go buy yourself food, but here's the fucking groceries, full stop, and hand them a bunch of groceries. You know, and he warned against that. Lucky he did, because these pricks then decided 2 weeks, what was it? It was only something like about 2 or 3 weeks later, they went and bought a business. Then with the amount of financial backing they somehow had, they also bought a new car. So they bought a business and a brand new car 3 weeks after they were begging us for money. It might have only actually been 2 weeks after they were begging everyone for money and saying that the welfare money wasn't enough to live on. They went and bought a business with loaned money. How the fuck they done that, I don't know. And also a brand new Ford Explorer. And they turned up to church in it, and I felt like saying, fuck, for all the people that are giving you money, what week is it going to be our turn to drive the Ford Explorer? Or are you going to give them a lend of the new car, seeing they probably fucking funded half of that new car? They wouldn't have funded half of it, but you know what? It was just a real insult to be asking for money and people to give them a couple of $100 here and there, and 2 weeks later they're in a brand new car. What the fuck? Brand new, just off the lot, you know, not fucking second-hand one. I'm talking brand new, 0 miles on the clock. And yeah, my dad was right in saying what he said to the other church member. Anyways, I'll read out the letter in another video.